Colonel Sandhurst was driving a hired carriage. The hotel owners had planned to buy their own carriage, but Sir Philip's loss at the races had put an end to that. The Colonel left the hotel at dawn, and therefore was confident of arriving at Sir Randolph's late in the afternoon. But as the distance between himself and Sir Randolph's home shortened, so did his confidence begin to wane. It was all right for the vulgar Sir Philip to be so pushing. He had not a sensitive bone in his body. But for a gentleman, the collecting of money was highly distasteful. So, a mile from Sir Randolph's, the Colonel drew up at an inn. A little brandy was needed to fortify his spirits. It was a modest inn, but it was run by a retired army sergeant who recognised in the Colonel's manner and bearing an old soldier like himself. He went down to his cellars and brought up a bottle of white brandy that was part of a consignment he had bought from the smugglers. It was very good brandy indeed, and it warmed the Colonel's heart, as did the flattering attentions of the landlord. When it transpired that the landlord had fought with Sir John Moore at Corunna, the Colonel expansively told him to draw up a chair. They fought old battles while the brandy sank lower in the bottle, and it was only the sight of darkness outside the windows that reminded Colonel Sandhurst guiltily of his mission, and he rose reluctantly and unsteadily to his feet. But as he climbed into his carriage after it had been brought round and picked up the reins, he felt a surge of power. He would speak quietly and firmly to Sir Randolph. The landlord had given him instructions as to how to get to Barton Park, Sir Randolph's home. The Colonel's spirits began to plummet as he turned in through the gate-posts, past a deserted lodge-house and up a long drive. Although it was dark, he could smell an estate that had been left to go to seed. And then there was actual physical evidence as unkept bushes brushed the carriage, and in places the drive was nearly grown over. There was a full moon rising up the sky, and suddenly, in its silvery light, he saw a female figure in front of him on the drive, a figure carrying a bandbox, a figure that let out a startled cry and dived into the bushes. Had the normally reticent Colonel not drunk so much, he would have proceeded on his way, but he was anxious to delay the confrontation with Sir Randolph, and so he reined in his horses, tethered them to a tree, and plunged into the undergrowth, from which his still sharp ears could hear the sound of muffled sobbing. Holding high a carriage lamp, which he had unhitched, he saw a little clearing ahead of him, and there, like Niobe, all tears, perched on the end of a half-shuttered ruin of a marble bench, was a young girl. She was holding a wisp of cambric handkerchief to her small nose, and sobbing dismally. "Here now," said the Colonel, advancing. "This will never do." She twisted round and looked up at him. He could see her face clearly in the light of the lamp, which he held high. It was one of the most beautiful and appealing faces he had ever seen, unmarred by her weeping. "Do not be afraid," went on the Colonel in the same gentle voice. "I will not harm you." "But you will betray me?" A small, choked voice. "Why not tell me why you are weeping, and perhaps I might be of help?" The Colonel held out a huge serviceable handkerchief, which she gratefully took and blew her small nose on. He put the lantern down on the grass and sat gingerly next to her on the little bit of marble seat that was still intact. She looked at him and studied him, and then, perhaps being reassured by his white hair and his years, she said, "I am running away from home." "You are Sir Randolph's daughter?" "Yes. I am Miss Frederica Grey." "And why are you running away from home, Miss Frederica?" "Papa is forcing me to marry Lord Peter Bewley, a brute of a man, and near his dotage. He is 40.